We are coming on to the eve of Samhain, the time of the thinning of the veil between the worlds. Say what? Well, what does that mean to you? I looked at a lot of online sources before I started doing this video. And the same paragraph is repeated hundreds, literally hundreds of times when it comes to Samhain, the eve of the thinning of the veil between the worlds. So let's go back and start again. Merry meet Annie here. What does it mean to you? Do you already have an idea of what the thinning of the veil means? Because I'm not trying to make an assumption you don't know, because I dare say a lot of us have our own idea of what this momentous occasion on the wheel is. Perhaps the most momentous occasion. Samhain is one of the four greater Sabbats, and in fact it is called the Great Sabbat. I don't quite agree with that. I find it a balance to the Sabbat of Beltane. And in fact, one of the things I love about this time of the year is that we are, no matter whether we live in the northern or the southern hemisphere, tapping in to the very same energy. Similar experiences happen for me at both of those turnings of the wheel. I work similar magics. Similar things visit me, entering into my world, or me entering into their world. It's one of the things that I enjoy about this season of Samhain and Beltane, is how deeply we are connected as witches at these seemingly opposite times of the year, according to where we are living. Both of the evenings represent the beginning of something. In the old view of the world as having two halves, the dark and the light half, winter and summer. Samhain begins winter. Beltane begins summer. They both have that shared power of the beginning of the half of a complete whole, the wheel of the year. That moment, the time between seasons, between the dark and the light, it's a pause. It's an understanding of a moment of suspension, a moment of limbo between what was, at Samhain, summer, which was, and winter, which is arriving, and Beltane, spring, which was, and summer, which is arriving. It marks the end of a season and the beginning of another, but most powerfully, and how we connect to it at the spiritual and magical level, is it's that moment which is neither. It's the moment at which Samhain is neither summer or winter. The moment at which Beltane is neither spring nor summer. Therein lies their shared power. This veil that we see constantly referenced, this veil that's going to lift between the seasons, it is that moment that is at the same time both seasons and neither of the two seasons. With time suspended, that moment that we are in is neither what has been or what will be. At the same time, it is both. Samhain and Beltane as they balance each other. Samhain as the understanding of death and immortality. Beltane as the understanding of death, which became immortality and which moves into life yet again. We're touching on the same mystery at these opposite points on the wheel. These moments are moments when time literally dissolves. It's suspended. It's left hanging for that moment. And we capture that in the work that we do, the energy we tap into. We know that neither of the two energies that we tapped into, that of coming out of chaos or dissolving into chaos, is permanent, because one will turn forever into the other. The cycle never ends. Both of these complementary moments on the wheel, I say, are about death. Samhain, about the physical death. The dying of the world around us, the recession into winter, and also about our own mortality and the mortality of our loved ones. But it's also about death at Beltane. One of the higher powers of Beltane is the concept of sacrifice. What has to be given over in order for life itself to become manifest? The power of fertility at the Beltane festival has a lot to do about the god giving himself over in complete devotion to the goddess, knowing that cycle will then bring him to his death, where he will experience his own mortality and therefore align himself with the mortality of the world. Death and sacrifice. Understanding of the power of chaos. One pause takes us into the darkness. One pause brings us yet again into the light, only to return again in the next turning to the darkness. Balanced power. The power of working with these energies is that of working with liminal time. The definition of liminal time is that it is of or about a transitional stage. It's the part of a process, being in a particular place in the process that's neither here nor there. Either sitting on a boundary or at the same time, and this is some of the power of it, being on both sides of the boundary. The word root is Latin for threshold, and in that we have the concept of luminal time as the time that brings us to the edge of something. Appreciating that moment. We are at the same time here and there, and neither place. It's a suspension of time, a suspension of worlds. Or it is all time, or a foot in one world and the other at the same time. There are anthropological definitions of living in the liminal, which we understand as witches. We do it every time we go into ritual, no matter how informal or formal we choose to practice. We go in as something. Our foot was in one world. We create a situation, whether it's in a circle or just in the way we go about our business. We create a situation that distances us from that in order to create that place of chaos and beautiful manifestation, which brings us out the other side changed. There was what was, there is the cauldron of chaos that we intentionally create, and there is what we are when we come out the other side. This is a definition of the witches' rites, the power of our ritual and what we aim to do within it. So we revisit this place of luminal time twice a year, especially at Beltane and Samhain, and every time we take ourselves between the worlds and into our rituals where time and place do not exist, and when we return changed. The experience of liminality is the experience of initiation. Standing on the edge, there was what was, and there is for the moment suspending that and then stepping into what is next. It's not an accident, it is intentional. And we put ourselves there at Beltane and Samhain of each year, standing on the edge. The power of these two hinge points of the year is what we bring to it in the way of perception. When we are held in that moment of suspension, if we have arrived there prepared, we have a heightened sense of awareness of the senses and of the things which are outside of that which can be described through the senses. We look into the chaos at both of those turnings of the wheel, and we see shapes. We see forms. We see the things which are about to become. That's why they are both powerful times in the year for divination. When we are witness to what is on the other side of the veil, when we lift the veil and see clearly, we have the opportunity to embrace forms and shapes and futures. And because we are in heightened states of awareness, because we have declared it so, we have said these two are the great Sabbats. Because we have that heightened sense of awareness, it is said at Beltane, we travel, we go into a world beyond the physical. We perceive things in this world that we don't normally perceive. Our traditions tell us it's the time of the Fae. It's not the time that they suddenly arrive in this world. It's the time we have the ability to notice them and feel them, to go into the place where their world overlaps our world. And at Samhain, the balanced blessing is our heightened awareness, that place we've put us, brings us to a place of understanding of what comes to us. We don't travel forth as we do in Beltane. Instead, we allow that other world to come to us. So it makes great sense that we might have an understanding at that point of all who have gone before, of that world that was their next step in the journey, an opening of that veil, that liminal time, the suspension of time, where they have been and where they are going to go is as indefinite as it is for us at the moment, and we can share that place. I'm going to do a separate video on ancestors who show or do not show when we hold our memorial rites at Samhain. But the power of it is that heightened perception we have of them moving into our world. So when you next see that same paragraph, ad nauseum, over and over again, that Samhain is the time of the lifting of the veil between the worlds. Stop and think, what does that mean to you? What is the power at being at a point prepared, comfortable, at ease with the concept of not being in either the physical or the spiritual, etherical world? The comfort you have in being in a place where time is literally suspended, a time that is between. And when something is not of time and it is not of place, what is it? What marvels are you witness to? Chaos and the forms that rise out of that. The lifting of the veil is opening your mind up in awareness and perception to the things that are not of this mundane world that we live in. It's the experience of liminal time, the transformative experience of liminal time. Whether we touch on it at these two great festivals or the countless times we intentionally go there in our rituals and our workings, we are entering the place, and to my mind, the only place that is where the power of the witch lies. I wish you mirth and reverence. Merry part.